you have?
He's one. Yeah,
Okay.
he's got all sorts of new opinions and stuff.
Yeah, wait till they get to 13. They got a ton
Yeah.
of opinions then, and they cost more. But congratulations on that, man. Excited for you.
Right on. Thank you.
Who else? Come on, got a few more.
Good morning, Chris. Hi, team. Nice
There
to
we
see
go.
everybody. Total win that I am on time with taking my kids to 2 different schools. If you know the struggle and challenges of my life, we've battled this for so many years. We're like always late every day because the kids just don't want to get out of bed and go to school. So we've been doing so good, and that is a huge win for me. And that we're pretty much taking over Kona, so that's huge. Grateful.
Break it up a little bit there, but yes, I get the gist of that. Well, congratulations for you on that too. We know the struggle is real. Being a parent and dropping off kids at multiple locations every day. So I feel you, and congratulations on that for achieving that goal today. Awesome. Always good to see you, my dear. Drive safely for sure. Anybody else before I move on? Something good? Something new in their life? Something exciting? Nothing? All right. Going once, twice, 3 times. Good. All right. Moving forward. We're going to do a quick little mortgage minute here with Duncan. Duncan, give us some updates. What's going on, my friend, with interest rates and challenges with the market, what we're looking at here moving forward?
We've got rates hitting new multi-year lows last couple of weeks. Let me pull up. I got a couple of slides to show you guys some pretty cool tools. So mortgage rates hit a peak almost a year ago at close to 8% or a little over 8%, and they've been trending lower. So if you guys can see the screen here, I have the chart showing the mortgage rates lowering. Last couple of weeks, they came down because of some news indicating that inflation is lower. It's in the 2s now, which is close to the Fed's target rate. And on the last call, I mentioned something called the SOM rule. It's a recession indicator, and that recession indicator was triggered by the inflation or the jobs report, which came out with much higher unemployment. And so I'm having trouble moving to the next slide, but the next slide shows the SOM rule, and that indicator triggered with the jobs report. And that jobs report showed inflation or unemployment has gone up over 0.5% using the 3-month average. And so that has been a pretty reliable indicator of recessions. If we get a recession, and it's likely based on the historical record of this indicator, in the next couple of years, we're likely to get a recession. And if so, that's one big reason that mortgage rates will continue to move lower. Another big reason is the Fed is going to start cutting the short-term rates starting next month. And I also have a slide showing the CME Fed Watch. Some of you guys may be familiar with it. There's a tool called CME Fed Watch, and you can just Google CME Fed Watch to pull it up. And it shows that the expectations of the market is for the Fed to cut rates at least 2% over the next year. So that's a pretty big a series of cuts that the Fed's expected to make over the next year. So by September of 2025, we should see the Fed funds rate 2% lower, and in turn, we probably will see the mortgage rates take a similar drop. Although mortgage rates are very different from the short-term rate market. The mortgage rates is based on the bond market, longer term, where people look at inflation and expectations for interest rates in the future. So they've already priced in some Fed rate cuts. So we're not going to see it go hand in hand with the Fed, but we do see the Fed cutting rates by a couple of percent over the next year. Another thing I was going to mention is with lower rates coming down, you got more people that are going to qualify for zero down loans. And so we have a few different options with zero down loans. We've always had VA loans and USDA loans for veterans or military and for people looking in rural areas, with limitations on the USDA loans with the DTI being restricted on USDA loans. So you can't go as high on USDA loans. We also have had FHA loans with zero down when you have down payment assistance programs. So we can help people qualify for VA, USDA, FHA, and now we have a portfolio loan through Bank of Hawaii where we can help people buy with zero down up to $1 million. So it brings you up to a higher price range than you can with some other options. And as long as they qualify for the mortgage insurance and they qualify for the loan, they can qualify, and they do need to contribute 1%, and that can be towards closing costs or toward the down payment. But they can buy with zero down, with at least 1% borrower contribution, and they can get a portfolio loan up to $1 million. So it's great to have another alternative for those people that qualify that want to buy with zero down. I'm also, as some of you know, I'm also a financial advisor, and I've had a couple different options for high returns with low risk. I just added another one, so we have several different options for people to make 12 to 20% with very low risk, and so it's something that can work really well. And then finally, I mentioned the deferred sales trust last time. I've also got a couple other alternatives to save on capital gains. So you got someone that wants to sell a property and is afraid to because of having to pay the high capital gains tax. That's something that they don't really need to worry about anymore, because we've got several different ways to get around that. It makes sense when you have big capital gains, but if you hit somebody that is trying to sell a place or is hesitant to sell because they have a big capital gains to pay, more in the 500,000 plus range, we've got techniques, ways to defer those capital gains and not have to pay those. They can defer them indefinitely, and it's a way to really have your money working for you much more than having to pay it all to Uncle Sam. So thanks, guys, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. My contact information, I think you guys have it, or if you don't, then it's at the end of this slideshow, but I can't switch it over. Chris,
you can't go to the screen.
No, it's not letting me move.
Huh. All right. Awesome. Well, Duncan, appreciate you. Yes, he has his own mortgage company here in Hawaii, so he does work all different islands. Sorry, every island, right, Duncan?
Yeah, we can lend in every island. We've got 11 loan officers on 3 islands: Maui, Big Island, Oahu, and we're actually adding a 12th soon. So we're continually growing.
Awesome. Well, thank you always for bringing some insight to us and all the tips and tricks going on. The DST thing, I think I'm doing something with Kyle tomorrow at the Pacific Club. He's doing a DST presentation too, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's the Delaware Statutory Trust, which can be done in combination with the Deferred Sales Trust.
Yes. So yeah, the Delaware one. So anyways, awesome. Thanks for the input. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Duncan. All right, so we do have a few minutes left before we get to see Leo. Leo is letting me show up at 8:30. That was his time he got us there. So let's chat a little bit. Anybody got any? Obviously the thing is up and coming. Leo has been the maverick, the headway of moving forward into this NAR situation with our situation in the business. And obviously it went into effect on the 17th, which was a few days ago. And now we are full-fledged, right knee deep into this situation. How many of you guys are encountering any situations or stuff? Obviously, it could be some good questions that we could shoot at Leo when he does come on. What are your guys' conversations, thoughts, and ideas behind anything that's happened, or have you had anything that's been challenging to you right now since the 17th or moving forward in this business currently? Anybody want to shout about something at all? Any scenarios at all? You got our issues? I got people calling me all the time saying, I got this problem. Go ahead, Courtney.
I have an instance. It didn't happen to me yet, but I had another agent tell me yesterday about a story where she had a buyer call her and asked to see her home, her listing. And she said, well, do you have an agent? Can they schedule a showing? And they said, yeah, well, I'm working with an agent, but I'm not going to agree to sign anything yet. So I just want to see the house. So basically they're wanting the listing agents to show them the properties because they don't want to sign a buyer's agreement with their agent yet.
Trying to get sneaky on that. Okay. Well, obviously we're going to see a lot of these different challenges that are going to rise up here. I think at this point, it's going to be a little bit of the wild, wild west for a short time. People are really going to have to get acclimated and understanding the process of this and seeing. Honestly, I feel like we're going to see a lot of people with their ethics and morals and potentially probably kind of rise to the surface and see who people really are. But as I've always told people in this business, you always got to do the right thing. As listing agents, as selling agents, as buyer's agents, we got to do the right thing. And the right thing is that we have a fiduciary duty, obviously, to honor our client and do the best we can if we're selling it. And obviously, as a buyer representation, to represent our buyer. So, but this hasn't changed much anything at all in this business. I mean, we've been doing this for 22 years. And we've been doing the buyer rep agreements back in the day, in the very, very beginning. But there's been a gap where a lot of us stopped using them and didn't implement them in the business. And this is where I think we're going to see a lot of the changes where people are going to show up differently and not really know how to target this business. I get calls daily about trying to figure out how this looks One thing I'll say about eXp, we've been doing a lot of things from the very beginning. Leo and the entire team from the CEO down has been doing tons and tons of webinars. Even our state brokers here in Hawaii have done an amazing job. Kelly and Emily, every week, Kelly is doing something 2 or 3 times a day sometimes on contracts. Are you guys actually seeing those things for the meetings? Has anyone attended those meetings? They're great meetings.
Hey,
Ronnie,
hey,
yes.
yeah, Chris, in response to that question, I guess my thought would be the listing agent could show the house as long as that agent signed an agreement with he or she or they. I would think that, that listing agent can't show the house, because in that situation, I believe the listing agent would function as a dual agent. And I think that's the only way they could show them the house. Yes or no?
I believe so. I think that kind of does conform to the dual agency. He'd represent, in that sense, he'd be representing them to show them the property. So yeah, I would say technically he would be acting as in he was a buyer's agent or a buyer's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the fine line. Obviously, I think a lot of these things are going to have to come to the surface to decide what it looks like. But I think you're on the right page, Ronnie. I would agree. Anybody else?
Yeah, Chris.
Yes.
I believe you could just instruct the buyer that they would be a customer in this situation. They are not a client. You could, as far as I know, you can certainly show the house to them, but they have to be aware that you are not representing them as a buyer's agent.
Gotcha. Okay. So just kind of like opening the windows, do window shopping, essentially, but not representing them in the actual transaction.
I believe that the agent did call Kelly and ask in this situation, and Kelly told her she could show the home, but she could not provide any information on regards to the buying side. So that would be similar, using them as a customer versus a client. And she, you can also instruct them, come to the open house, or maybe reach out to your buyer's agent again. Like, I don't know, like it's going to be very, I think, tricky to maneuver all these little situations, without stepping on anyone's toes or doing the wrong thing.
Yep. It's going to be, again, a really fine line that people are going to have to distinguish and identify what that looks like. Again, I think it's just always doing the right thing at this point and showing up for your client. It's all about value-based here. We got to show up and provide our value. Kiala, do you have a question?
No, I just had a comment. I feel like the aversion by the buyer is the unknown of the commitment of signing the buyer's rep. And if you explain to them that we could do it for one day, we could do it for 1 week, I mean, why wouldn't they sign that? That's not committing to a whole year, or, you know what I mean? I think if you explain to them that we can adjust that commitment time to go see a house on, 1 day, I feel like they would sign it. I've had luck doing that.
There we go. It gives them options, right? And then we kind of very quickly see how serious they really are, right? If they're just a window shopper and kind of wasting our time, it's kind of going through the process to identify what's the value of our time at this point. If they're really just going to be the one that kind of jumps around. But again, this was something that we were dealing with back in the day, right? Where we could be working with a client for 3 or 4 months, and all of a sudden they call us next week and say they got an offer accepted because they walked through an open house on the Saturday and the listing agent put the offer together for them. So it's no different, right? The same opportunity was going to happen to us 6 years ago. And now it's just the buyer up agreement would protect us. This is the way we signed them back in the day, was that no matter where they end up going, we potentially would get some percentage from whatever they were at if for some reason they did do that. So now we're here where we're having to provide that on a regular basis. Any other situations you guys are running into at this point? Have you had to deal with yet with any clients or scenarios like that? Thank you, Courtney, for providing that. Where you guys are running into situations that are kind of questionable, or maybe you just still don't understand.
I got one, Chris,
go ahead.
if you don't mind. So what I have run into with one particular client, and I know another team member has, is that they're having an issue with the buyer's representation agreement guaranteeing that the buyer will provide the brokerage with the commission if there's a difference in what the seller is compensating and what the brokerage is, what we have on the buyer's representation agreement, right? And so we're putting 3% plus GET because if we put anything lower and there is 3% plus GET, we can't be paid on that.
Correct.
And in the event that it's 2.25 or 2.5, no GET, then the agreement that they're signing is guaranteeing that they themselves will be the one coming up with the difference of that. And I see the way of getting around that is adding special language to the special terms. And right now, I think it's just about getting that nailed in. That's an acceptable, acceptable verbiage, I guess, with the broker team and eXp. And I think that's something we're going to have to navigate, because I think a lot of people are uncomfortable making that guarantee. So that's something I'm running into.
Okay. Dylan, go for it.
Okay, this is the mindset, you guys, we got to get past, right? This is the mind blower, is you don't have to accept what a seller is offering ever. Like, so if a seller is offering less than what your buyer's rep agreement says, ask for more. Like, you don't have to settle it. For 100 years, we've done this the wrong way, and we've gone through the whole process of helping a buyer. We spent 6 months with them, a year with them, and then we just take whatever the seller is offering, even though it's not what we're worth, right? And so we got to get past the mindset of our commission is limited to what a seller is going to offer. And if a seller is offering 2%, there's no reason why we can't negotiate for a 4% concession, right? So it's all about getting past the mindset of it's irrelevant what a seller offers, and we do not have to accept what the seller is offering. You work for what you're worth, and you charge what you're worth. And if you're worth less, then go ahead and take less. But it's all about being in the right mindset and working for and getting what you exactly deserve. And so wrap your head around that, guys. We don't have to accept if the seller is offering 2% or 2.5% or whatever. We can always negotiate for more. And that's what's going to happen with good buyers agents, is that sellers are going to see that when offers come in, the offers are going to be they're not going to settle for whatever they're offering, and they're going to understand that it's all a negotiation. It's all a negotiation now, forever. And so just remember that you don't have to accept what a seller is offering.
So thank you for that point, Dylan. Now, my counterpoint is that a lot of our buyers are VA buyers, and they don't even have a dollar to put down, and we're already building in a concession to build in closing costs and buying down interest rates to get them to an affordable monthly rate. And a lot of times we're maxing out that 4% concession just to get them to a comfortable monthly number on the home they want, which doesn't leave room for that. So in certain cases, yes, I agree that there's room for changing mindset and negotiating higher than you're worth, but in some cases, there's just not the money there. So it's just case by case, right? It's a nuanced thing.
Yeah, it's always case by case, but we're not limited to the VA loan doesn't count commissions or customary costs as part of the overall concession limit. So we can always build more of it into it.
I love it. I agree with you 100%, both sides, Michael and Dylan. Thanks for sharing that. The reality is, I think we all got to get back to it. It's no different. Again, we've been fighting for this since as listing agents forever. We'd go into a listing presentation and we'd argue why we charge 6% and why there's a discount broker who would charge 2%. Where was your value proposition? Where did you show up? Why did you show him why you were worth 6%? And in your heart, you believed you're worth 6%, no doubt. In my listing agreements, I never handwritten our contracts were different in California though. We typed in what the percentage was. It was a percentage or a flat rate that we were charging the listing agent. The seller. But mine was always a hard 6 in it every time. It was never I was writing it in with ink. It was already in there, like it was part of the actual verbiage. So they never questioned it. And I explained to them why it was 6%. I never went less than that. But this is where you got to show your value proposition. This is exciting because as a buyer side, you're right. For so many years, we've just allowed the selling side to dictate what we were going to get paid. And we were okay with it. It's okay to think that you're worth 3%. I had an agent on my team who literally had this conversation yesterday, and she got back and says, oh my, she's excited. The buyer is going to pay her 3%. They agreed to it. It was that conversation they're afraid to have, but they had it and they were totally on board with it. So a lot of times I think we're actually anticipating something more or something negative that we don't really know. And it's available and buyers are going to be okay with it. It's a value proposition, 100% value proposition. Show up and your value is worth what it is. I always say, this is my analogy. Okay, this is biased, right? O.J. Simpson was guilty. Whoever doesn't think, I'm sorry. O.J. Simpson was guilty. He was. But Johnny Cochran got him off. Let's be honest, right? And the reality is, at that point moving forward, everybody wanted Johnny Cochran to represent him. Why? Because he did the thing that thought nobody could get done. And nobody called Johnny Cochran and asked him, well, how much are you going to charge me, Johnny? No, it was, can you fit me in your schedule? Can you represent me? I will pay whatever it takes to represent me, because the value was so strong. Become the Johnny Cochran of real estate. Be that person whose value is so high and the bar set so high that nobody ever questions monetary needs. Nobody ever questions money when the value is strong enough. So as agents, though, we've been able to get in this business, and we're so used to not having to fight for that or show up and provide why we're getting the 2.5%, because it was already there. Now we actually have to show up and do some work. That's all. It hasn't changed one bit, though. The same is the same. You just got to go out there and prove your value. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Michael, for both those comments. Anybody else that maybe still we got a few more minutes for Leo's here, but he's going to be about 4 or 5 minutes. Anybody still like maybe not completely 100% clear on what this is all about? Maybe you're like still a little confused. Don't feel bad. I don't want to raise my hand. Don't suffer in silence, everybody. This is why these groups are designed for us to come together. There's no wrong question here. There's no wrong statement. There's just the wrong one is the one you don't ask. So be open and be free. We're all in this together. We're all starting this together. We're all understanding it together. So don't feel as if you don't understand or know what's going on. Feel free. If there's anybody that has any questions at all, feel free to raise your hand at this point. We'd love to help you out and be there for you. Anybody got any questions or concerns or thoughts or ideas, opinions, anything at all? No? Then we can talk about football. I mean, we got a few minutes to talk about football. Football season's coming up here. I mean, that's something to talk about. Well, shoot, 3 more minutes. All right, what can we talk about here? Bardit, Island Dream Homes. Island Dream Homes. Go for it.
Hi, this is Michelle. I have a question. If you sign a buyer's agreement with your buyer and then they have already registered for a new development, a new housing development like Ho'opili here on Oahu, I've heard that if they've already registered and didn't put your name as their agent, that you do not get the commission from the new development. How does that work?
I haven't experienced the development. Is there anybody here working at new develops here in Hawaii?
So hey, here's the deal. This is a mindset wrap, right? Is that buyer's rep agreements compel the buyer to pay us, not the seller, right? So irregardless of what they do when they're buying, they're compelled to pay us. I mean, you can decide whether or not you're going to enforce that or not. But irregardless of what they do with a new developer or a seller, if they have a buyer's rep agreement with us, if they purchase any property covered in the geographic area of that agreement, we are entitled to a commission. So you got to deal with that on a case-by-case basis if you want to release your buyer from that. But we still owe a commission, whatever they did with the developer.
Yeah, there we go. I haven't had any experience yet with the buyer rep situation with the new developers. I just know back in the day, we had to register our clients in order to get that broker co-op. But I don't know now is inferred. But yeah, there we go. Good comment, Dylan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was at that development like a few months ago, and they did say like, oh, you need to sign in your buyer, or you need to just go in the first time with them. So I don't know if they've updated their rules since this new development. But yeah, that was what it was.
Awesome. So thank you, CZ. Again, this is going to be, I guess, something that we're going to have to, as we embrace moving forward, to see how this is going to work out and develop in itself with all these different things. But I always go back the same way. The buyer representative agreement is only designed about how you are getting paid and compensated for representing the buyer on the buyer side, not the seller, as Dylan said. So it's us to step up and do a little extra more work than we've done before in the past and show up differently than we maybe haven't showed up in the past. That's where we're at here with this whole thing. And at the end of the day, I really truly believe in my heart, I'm actually kind of excited that this is here because it does require a lot of agents to really show up and do things that they haven't done before. And that's just pretty my opinion. Just representing and showing up to represent your buyer. I mean, I've had so many agents, maybe you guys have dealt with them in the past, where they didn't even show up for their buyers. They literally would send them to open houses. They barely even showed up to do anything at all. They wrote contracts that were horrible and they were missing stuff in the contracts. They barely showed up and they were still getting that whatever percentage on the selling side. They knew they were going to get some compensation there regardless, so they didn't have to show up. And this was going to change, I believe, the temperature of how people's work ethics are now in this business, of really going the extra mile and doing the wow factor. It's about doing the wow factor. Shireen Duncan is on here, my unicorn. I love that lady. She is all about the wow factor, and I really respect her for that because her clients love dearly her, and they use her over and over again because she provides a wow factor that is beyond all measures, and that's what people remembers that. but she shows up and she doesn't have a problem with her business slowing down. As long as even in the last 2 years when everybody else was slowing down, she was skyrocketing, and she's still skyrocketing, that girl. So Shireen, do you have anything you can kind of share with anybody about how you do the wow factor and provide that extra added a piece to the business that maybe other agents are not doing?
Oh, I don't think I'm special at all, but I have been fortunate to have best year of my life. Last year and now this year, this year I've exceeded last year. So it's been a great run right now, and I do question myself, like, why? Because I honestly, I really don't know. I just feel blessed. But I do think just the personal, and I look at a lot of other top realtors that I have had mentor and watched my whole life, you know, and I think the biggest thing in real estate is being honest and transparent. And I think I say that a lot. I'm not salesy. If I was talking to somebody who wanted to sell their house right now and it was $10 million, I'd be talking to them just like I'm talking to you guys. So I think it's really just being yourself, but also your authentic self needs to care more about them than yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I do truly believe, just like, oh, they're going to the airport. Okay, you want to ride? What would you say to your friends?
Yes.
Okay, I know I'm going to give some people a ride to the airport tonight. But just whatever it is, pay attention. If their dog's barking, they have a dog, you should know their dog's name. I mean, I know this sounds so silly, but it is the little tiny things like that that make you connect with people, and remember the things that, whatever, if their kid was going to be in a canoe race, call that next day and say, hey, how did, you know, Jeffrey do in the canoe race yesterday? Like, actually, I know this sounds so crazy, but those are the things I am communicating stuff like that more than anything else with clients and connecting that way. So
yep.
I'm enjoying this new challenge right now. And like Michael said, I'm so lucky to have Michael as my broker assistant. He's amazing. But, you know, right now we're just trying to come up with verbiage so we can just show somebody a house one time. We haven't really met them yet. Go show them one time and just do the verbiage of, okay, for this house only, we have a buyer's agreement. They're offering 2.5%. That's all I'm going to be taking on this house. And, you know, so it's trying to get the verbiage of just running out and when you are just meeting somebody and haven't really met them yet. So, yeah.
I appreciate it. You're awesome, amazing, whether you believe it or not. Shireen, thank you so much for being you. And yes, it's the small things that matter in life. So it's touching. I appreciate that. And obviously it shows. All right. The man, the myth, the legend is here. Mr. Leo PAREJA. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are busier than all busy. Blessed and honored to have you here. We'll take 30 minutes we got from you, but we really, truly appreciate you leading the way, taking eXp to the next level. And I've seen this place grow. Obviously, we've been here, Serena and I, since 2016, you know, when there was almost 2,000 people here. And now you are leading the pack, taking us to each 100,000 people. And you are definitely the man. I'm extremely excited to have you as our leader. Leo, thank you for taking the time. And kind of, if you could share a little bit with us, people we may not know who Leo is, maybe share a little bit about your story, how you got here, Leo, and maybe if you could share some vision of what maybe you can, secrets of what's happening for 2025. And maybe if anybody has any questions for the NAR kind of situation, I don't know if you can fit it all in, but Leo, stage is yours, my friend. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Well, thank you for having me. What time is it over there?
Yeah, right now it is 8:34, so we're early.
Got it. I'm in Central Time today. I'm in Austin at the Win event, which was awesome. So make sure you ladies attend the next one because it was really, really powerful. For the ones that don't know me, my name is Leo PAREJA. I am the CEO of eXp Realty. I think that I'm unique in the sense that I'm the only CEO that I know of a publicly traded company that actually sold homes, which is interesting and novel to me. But I didn't also just do it, you know, for a couple of years and decided to go into leadership. It's what I did for 16 years of my life. I sold close to 4,000 homes. I was the #1 Kellums agent in the world in 2010. And it's all I've ever done. I've started 2 other businesses other than that. One was a large hard money lending business. And then I went on to start a software company called Remine. that got to about 85% of the United States by agent count. 1.1 million agents had access to it, with about 200,000 monthly active users. It was the fastest growing MLS technology in the country. Both of my companies got acquired. I moved to South Florida, and I was mostly spearfishing when I got a call from a friend who said, somebody's going to call you from this area, could pick up your phone. Turned out to be Mr. Glenn Sanford. And he convinced me to come take a job, which, by the way, is the first job I've ever had in my life. I've always been the founder and CEO. So I was 40 years old when I got my first job. The way Glenn sold me was, why don't you come hang out here until you get your next idea, and when you're ready, I can, participate in your Series A. And I guess that didn't happen because I'm now CEO. So that's the short version. I think the important part for you guys to hear is I am one of you. And I think I really demonstrated in the last 30 days. I speak agent fluently. I get this stuff. It's not academic for me. And I deeply care. So I think that's the summary. And Chris, I think it's probably best if we just do it as Q&A for as much of it as possible, if you prefer. But I just want to be as tactical and helpful as I can be for you guys.
I appreciate that. Yes. And we all, I think, collectively can universally say we're grateful that you are someone who is in the trenches and has done the work, rolled your sleeves up, and been in the grind. Because I think a lot of times we get people, I use the analogy of the military, right? A guy who goes to college, he gets a degree, and ends up coming out as a captain, but's never picked up a weapon in his life. I don't know if I'd follow that guy into battle. With you, I definitely would follow you into battle, and I would support you 100% because you are in the trenches and done what we've done for years. So I appreciate you and respect you for that. A couple of things, I guess, obviously you're coming in here now taking a big role. You got hit immediately with all these changes of NAR with our industry. This was a massive punch in the front of the face. And then, you have the other duties of really trying to keep this company going and growing and innovatively moving forward. Can you share some ideas of what your plans are? I mean, what your thoughts?
Yeah. So I think it's actually the opposite of what you said. I think I'm the CEO because this happened, right?
Ah.
So
Awesome.
Glenn had asked me twice to be the CEO prior, in the summer and then in December. And I actually very transparently kept saying, I prefer when you're the CEO and I'm the fun uncle, right? I'd rather you be dad and I'm the fun uncle that gets to play with the kids, but then give them back because they're not mine. And then after March 18th, that Monday when I went live and 53,000 people tuned in, and for good or bad, I became the de facto face of the entire real estate industry. March 18th, on March 29th, he called me and he said, I spoke to the board and you are the CEO. I said, can we talk about it? He said, no, you were the CEO. So that third conversation did not last that long. So to answer your question, I feel that I am the CEO because of this moment. And Dylan and I talk about this. I am very much a wartime general. So, for good or bad, my nervous system wired itself during the financial crisis, and some people are built for these moments and some aren't. And, once we're back at peacetime, I might not want to be the CEO anymore. So we'll see. But we got lots to do. I'm very transparent. I think you guys have learned that in the last 30 days. I'm going to tell you it's going to get much worse before it gets better. I don't think I internalized that until the last 30 days, like the level of fear, the level of people not wanting change. Just open up anything I've ever said and read the comments. It's pretty interesting. The amount of people that don't want anything to change or are angry about it. I made a post on Saturday, and I said 10% of life is what happens and 90% how you choose to react to it. And so I beg all of you to have as much empathy and patience for the other agents as well as the consumers, right? Because there's going to be a lot of awkwardness, right? I'm calling it the messy middle. Because consumers are going to call you and say, well, my dad and my brother said I didn't have to sign a buyer's agent agreement. This doesn't make any sense. You're trying to take advantage of me. There's going to be this period of adjustment, right? Where I'm telling you, I don't want you to accept broker commission, to just put it in your offer and have them pay you directly. We're having brokers say, well, then you're not getting paid, right? So there's egos and there's adjustments. So I've said it before and I'll continue to say it, like none of us know how this is going to unfold. And so a lot of this is figuring it out together. Right. And I reserve the right, and you guys reserve the right for us to update our SOPs and learn and adapt as we have better examples. And the cool thing about being in 50 states is like some really cool language comes out in the other side of the country. I can share it with you guys, right? Like some good paperwork evolves out of something. So, it's funny you asked me that question, Chris, because I think I did a Housing Wire interview like the week of, because I'm close to Clayton, and I gave them the exclusive when we announced I was CEO. And they were, it was very much like when you get inaugurated as president, it's like, oh, what's your plan for the next 100 days? And I just said, I just want to get past the NAR settlement. And it was like, okay, what else? I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, this is all that matters for the rest of 2024. And now I'm probably going to take a step further and say, this is all that matters for 2025. Yeah. Right. My prediction as of, whatever date today is that there are people who are going to make the change. They're just not going to survive. Right. And it's interesting as I've talked to agents all over the country, and there's just folks who are they can't get their head around it. And I think it's a skills and confidence thing more than anything else. It's not that I don't think any agent who's currently with us can't do the role. Right. It's self-confidence and over to ask. Right. It's, the buyer agent relationship previously was somewhat informal. You bumped into somebody, they kind of thought you were cool. You showed them some houses, and if they wrote a contract with you, or they're their agent, or they ghosted you and you were no longer their agent, right? Now we have very specific exclusive or non-exclusive relationships with a start and end date. And there will be compensation, right? I think really good agents may actually get a raise, right? Because you're no longer beholden to the listing agent's, skill or lack of skill to negotiate your fee, right? Like you may actually now have a new standard based on your value proposition, or you could go the other way and make it, a volume flat free model. And there's no right or wrong, right? I truly think that the new fee, which is the number one question I get asked on the media, will be the new fee. And that's not a non-answer. I just look at the seller paradigm, right? I've been licensed 23 years. And in that time, I've seen plenty of listing companies have very diverse models, flat fee, menu of services, percentages, and they normally have a corresponding amount of effort and value, right? Based on the value proposition of that value bundle. So I assume we'll see the same on the buy side. And it either maths or it doesn't, right? Math matters. So I truly don't advocate for a specific model. I think, capitalism is a beautiful thing because it rewards the people who figure out how to serve the customers in a way they want to be served for a fee they're willing to pay. So I think by next summer, so this is the part I can't guess. I don't know if it takes 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 18 months, but we will get to a new normal, and all of this will sound as ridiculous as when we were all wiping down our groceries with disinfectant wipes, right? Like now it's literally comedy to us, but we were all terrified, right? So, and the agents that, Dylan and others put on their team next summer will literally be wondering what the old timers were talking about. Like, I don't get it. Like, you didn't do what? You didn't get anything signed. Like, that's crazy. So that's my humble prediction.
I love it. Appreciate that. We got some questions here. I think, did Island Dreams have a question? Or who is first? Island Dreams, who wants to go first? Go for it. Go for it, Dylan.
Yeah, I think those hands up were up from earlier. I was hoping you could speak to, one of the things you led on was the not doing broker to broker compensation. And I think that's a conversation that a lot of agents are having. And I know you took a lot of heat over, but then now everybody is starting to follow. But you articulate the thought process behind that, I think, better than anybody else does. If you could just speak to that, so we all have a clear understanding, and we can pass that on. I think also to our buyers and sellers, right, to understand why we're doing business. Yeah.
Yep. No, great question. So the first explanation is a couple things. I wholeheartedly believe that this is the result of greedy plaintiffs' attorneys who are chasing a paycheck, and they don't actually give a shit about the consumer. Mm-hmm. So that's actually really important to explain, because none of this makes any damn sense. Mm-hmm. I think the US and the North American real estate market is the most beautiful, liquid, accurate, amazing form of real estate on the planet. And I can say that because I run a company in 24 countries, right? Like we actually operate in a world where any piece of real estate in the 50 states we're in and the 9 provinces in Canada, if you tell me the value is $1 million, there is a price where I could actually list it tomorrow, receive 17 offers and close by next Friday, right? The market will dictate whether that's 950, 9 and a quarter, 875. There is a number at which I can create enough demand and liquidate a property into cash within 10 days. True or false? That is because of a cooperative market MLS system. I cannot do that in Belize. I cannot do that in Colombia. I can't do that in the UK, right? Like I can't do that in Australia and South Africa, like really established, robust, similar first world countries. So I'm quite a loud defendant of our way of doing things. Now, I believe life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. So if I cannot control the rules and don't agree with them, I have to ask myself the question, do I still want to serve families purchasing homes? And the answer is yes. So really just stepping down and reading all the stuff. So this is the part that Dylan's asking for. Paragraph 19 of the settlement agreement, in very specific, very non-ambiguous words, says broker to broker is prohibited on the MLS, right? Prohibited, forever, deleted, banned, illegal. They used every word that is a very specific outcome. Then you scroll down to paragraph 32. They said, well, you can do broker to broker off the MLS. And that's the contradiction and the confusion. California Association of Realtors, the largest association of realtors, in June drafted a broker to broker form. And that 3-letter organization called the DOJ served them with a cease and desist and said, don't you dare. Then you have, so we have 3 different rule sets that we're dealing with. NAR is very specific. Each MLS has its own set of fines, right, that are rolling out and you guys are seeing in social media every day. And then you have DOJ commentary. So we took, and I took, a position that was a little further than the settlement. And that's where I caught all the grief. They said, well, that's not what the settlement says. I said, I know, I actually read it. But I'm telling you, paragraph 19 says one thing and 32 is contradictory, but we have very clear instructions that DOJ said don't do that. And, oh, by the way, broker to broker compensation is what creates the fines in the MLS. So we're just saying, we're just not going to do it at all. That doesn't mean we're not going to work with buyer brokers. That doesn't mean the seller can't directly compensate the broker. So what is very clear to me, and I want you to articulate to every seller, is the rules are different. I think if you present all the information in factual, this is how we did real estate before August 17th, and these are the new rules of engagement. You can still offer buyer broker compensation paid by the seller at time of listing, right, through a seller directed compensation form. That's option A. You could say in paragraph 21, seller is open to any and all offers. Say we're open to it. Or you actually don't have to say anything at all. And that's actually the biggest distinction from before. Because before, to be a member participant of an MLS, you had to actively endeavor and offer a unilateral offer of compensation. That's actually one of the binding deals of the MLS, right? You had to put something. Most were $1, but you had to put something. You couldn't actually enter a listing into the MLS without it. That entire field is now deleted. And so to take it one step further, this is not what Dylan asked me, but this is why I think it's very important that you articulate to a seller all the possibilities, because the flip side of the coin is the agent's not allowed to earn anything that's not in the buyer representation agreement. Everybody's clear about that. So let's just say you're the buyer broker said they'll do it for 2 and the seller is offering 3. Well, by offering 3 before you've seen the offer, you gave away a full percent. Right? Like if I list a house for $500,000 and in the remarks say seller concessions of 50,000, use them for whatever, repair credit, roof credit, HVAC, concessions, commissions. What did you list that house for? You listed that house for $450,000. You did not list that house for $500,000. Right. So again, I'm not advising you how to do your business. And I think that strategy and marketing should be specific to that property, to the level of inventory that's available in that market, to, you know, the rareness or uniqueness or sellability of a house. Right. I sold REO in 2008, 9, and 10 when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the federal government, were offering 5 and 6 and 7% broker co-op commissions. Right. Because there was 18 months of inventory and properties were priced all the way down to $80,000. Right. So I think what will come of this, good or bad, no opinion, is there's going to be diverse marketing strategies and variability based on supply, demand, sophistication of customer, price point, all kinds of stuff.
Questions? Yes. Mike's on.
Yeah, you guys, we got Leo here. You guys could ample time, opportunity, plug in anybody. This is guy. You got this guy here. His attention is right on us. So go for it. Anybody got a question? Outside of me running into my eXp convention or something like that, you have Leo right now on this call where his undivided attention. So this is the man right here that has pretty much all the answers to everything right now at this point, as you can all see.
If nobody's going, I'll keep him going. I've heard him talk about a lot of things, and you know, you informed a ton of the way that I view the world now. And I think another perspective that you share on, which is great, is treating buyers like sellers and wrapping our heads around that mindset. So if you kind of talk about that, I think that's important for us to all get into that.
Yeah. So I actually have a T-shirt made that I wear sometimes. So I feel like that's so one of the things I think about is parallels, right? I think there's a book I just read that said, in the absence of information, the brain fills gaps. And I think that's actually where all like the nightmares and creepy stuff that come into your brain. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, and your brain just goes nuts. Right. So I like to find parallels. I think there's way too many people just letting their imagination run rampant with the shift. And so I always try to anchor it in parallels. The super interesting one to me is sellers, right? Treat your buyers like you treat your sellers. And the analogy that I would say to everybody is like, look, Blake, imagine going to a listing appointment and the seller's like, you know, what am I going to pay you? I'm like, oh, we'll see when the contract shows up. And how long are you going to market the house for? I don't know, till I get tired or you ghost me. Right? Like the concept is ridiculous for a couple reasons. One is because you're not allowed to, right? You were trained from the day you got your license that in order to take a listing, it has to be in writing. It has to have a start date and end date and clear cost, right? There's no variability. Although you could have a menu of services, but it couldn't be like, it's whatever between 1 and 3 we feel like it. That's not allowed, right? So it's literally not an enforceable way of taking a listing in all 50 states. So it's normal to us to ask for all this stuff. So basically the same rules apply to a buyer that apply to a seller, right? And so assume every appointment is now a competitive listing appointment, right? Like if you've taken a listing probably since 2012, there's a pretty good chance that we're interviewing multiple listing agents with multiple business models, right? I don't think it'd be unfair to say that, you know, a seller talked to a flat fee, a menu of services, a full service company and a team versus a solo agent. Like Dylan's value proposition is different than a solo team, than a solo practitioner, right? So assume that the buyer presentation is now competitive. Assume that you have to show up with a tight presentation that articulates the services you'll render for the fee you're willing to earn, right? And you could have multiple flavors of ice cream. You could say, if you want a flat fee, it's X, and you get these services. If you want a menu of services where it's this for resale, it's this for new construction, it's that for a short sale, you can actually dictate in your presentation and the business model you choose. And I'm not giving you an opinion as to what you should do. I don't know what works for your price point, your units, your margin that you need to keep the lights on. And I think if you approach it like, okay, so What I know for a fact is none of us know our data on buyers like we do for sellers. Like if I were to pick on any one of you, you should be able to tell me your average days on market, your list to sell ratio. Do you sell above list? Like you know all these metrics as a listing agent. We've never collectively done this as buyers agents. Like, do you know how many buyers you helped in the last 24 months? Do you know what list to sell price discount you were able to secure? Like, if I were to pick on Rachel, can you tell me what the average concessions on average you collected for the last 10 buyers, right? Because if you look at CAR data or Bright MLS data, the two largest MLSs in the US, on average, 55% of the listings paid out concessions. So statistically speaking, Rachel, you got a 55% ratio of receiving concessions. Like if you go back and find out that statistically you get 4% concessions back to a buyer and you're telling them, hey, by the way, my fee is X. And oh, by the way, on the last 24 buyers, I've gotten them an average of a 4% concession. That's part of your value proposition, right? So back to that one, your buyer presentation should have the 105 things that the average realtor does task-wise per the National Association of Realtors. You should also probably have in there that on average, you spend between 80 to 100 hours with a buyer, right? And again, let's just assume you know your price points and your commissions, and on an average price point that's 400,000, you bring in a gross of $10,000 in GCI, and after an 80-20 split, it's $8,000 divided by 100 hours. Like you can explain to a buyer, like it's $50 to $70 an hour. Like this is not easy work. This is not what you think it is, right? There's some data that says that the average buyer thinks that the average agent spends about 15 hours with them total. If the consumer can actually understand the amount of time and effort rendered, they would actually probably attribute more value to what you do.
I love how you said that, because I think this is why I mentioned earlier, if those who did short sales and REOs back in the late 2008 and 9, there's a lot of times when they were very beginning, we had no idea, and it was so messed up. It took months and months and months and months of working with a client on a short sale. And at the end of the day, we were getting 2.5% or whatever we were getting. But my mind's like, God, I wish I was getting paid for all the work I was doing. I was doing so much more work than what I was getting paid for. And the day when I broke it down, was sometimes less than minimum wage by the time you invested in this. So this is where Leo was talking about. You have the opportunity now to really show up and kind of express your value of what you're doing and do it in different levels. So thank you for sharing that, Leo. We got a couple of minutes more. We got a couple minutes left with Leo here. Anybody got anything else? Dylan, you got something else you want to shoot out real quick here? This has been awesome and amazing. Giving insight this and articulate your thoughts and all this, and we appreciate you, Leo. But yeah, anybody at all? Couple more minutes here. Kristen, go ahead.
We have some potential buyers that want to see it for themselves online, what you're talking about. Do you have a specific resource that's the best or the most credible that you feel sending people that want to do their own research?
I'm not sure I'm following. So because one part of my talk track when I trained my buyer's agents was to actually say to buyers, 80 to 90% chance that the house we ultimately write a contract on is one you are going to find on a portal yourself and you're going to send to me, right? And just so you know that 80 to 90% of the value I'm going to bring to the table happens once you've identified the house that we actually write a contract on, and the value I bring to the table is from contract to close. It's actually not sending you listings and unlocking doors. And again, it's all about setting expectations, right? If an agent thinks that that's the value you bring, of course they're going to discount the value, but we all know that like opening the door is 5% of that, right? Like negotiation, getting them through all the contingencies and the financing and the title and all the fun stuff and the HOA stuff that you guys have to deal with. All that stuff is the complicated part with the value proposition. So I'm not exactly sure, Kristen. I don't want to give you a non-answer. So if you could say it differently.
I'm sorry, Leo. I meant to say like the settlement. If they wanted to read up on it, they wanted.
Yeah. So if you Google NAR settlement, like you'll get the NAR
Google.
FAQs, and I could probably find it. Well, you guys are asking me a question. I can't put it in here.
or you can share Leo's YouTube video he's done multiple times, which is amazingly unpackaging this whole thing too, with explanation and as well. Because sometimes a lot of people
you can send them my like, I think the Tom Ferry one I did was probably the shortest. It's 20 minutes and it's very clear. But if you want to overwhelm them with information, send them Chris and I just put the link in there. Give them the actual NAR FAQs.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's the actual settlement itself.
What about, do we need to have that agreement signed before we do a virtual showing?
I don't think the agreement speaks to that. A virtual showing, I'm sorry, Ronnie, say it differently. A virtual showing is you opening the door and FaceTiming them?
Yeah, they're not on the island, but you know,
yeah, that's a really good Hawaii question. I would, so I mean, I'm asking you differently. Ronnie, would you prefer not to?
No, I would prefer to do it, and I prefer to say that I have to do it. The buyer's agency agreement became 1,000% easier because now we have a fall guy. It's called the government. So
again, I think this is also a very interesting exercise on self-confidence and the value you give yourself. And again, I think I mean, if we're being technical, I think you actually do need to sign it because you're unlocking the door and producing like fiduciary responsibilities. But again, like I would flip it to like, why would you not want to?
I would not want to.
And again, by the way, you know, Courtney or Ronnie, I think you also have the right as a business owner to decide what business you're willing to do. And again, by the way, and if you ever get accused of behavior, the number one protection is to do it uniformly, right? If you do it for everybody, you didn't discriminate anybody.
Yeah. And the day, it's just good practice, right? Good practice. Keep doing it. It just continue to create momentum there. Awesome. All right. We are at the top of the hour. Leo, I know you're extremely busy and you have a dozen things to do, but I greatly humbled that you were able to give us this time. Thank you so much. For those who, again, want to get a chance to meet him in person, go to eXp Convention. Come here in October, the 28th to the 30th in Miami. Definitely show up there. You can meet him in person. He'll have lunch with you, grab coffee, whatever. He's an amazing man to plug into and a wealth of knowledge. So, Leo, thank you again. I appreciate each and everybody on this call today. Thank you all for showing up. Have an amazing week. Go out and crush it. I love you all. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again next week.
Everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Bye.
Leo. Bye-bye.